Laurie, and thanks everyone for taking the time to join us today for our webinar on getting started with ActivInspire. My name is Claire Barber and I'm a Teaching and Learning Specialist with Promethean. As you can see on the screen now, we are aiming to cover an ambitious number of things in our time together today, so I'm going to jump straight in. Now, I feel certain that we have a mixed bag of attendees today. We probably have some people who have used other brands of interactive whiteboard software before and feel they are reasonably good users, but maybe just need a point in the right direction to find the tools and resources within an ActivInspire. And we probably have some teachers who have never used any interactive whiteboard software before and are wondering where on earth to begin with getting to grips with it. Well, we're catering for all levels here today. Remember, everyone starts somewhere. This is a journey, and you can choose the pace you want to go on this journey. Because I'm trying to cater for a mixed audience, you might see some examples today that you feel are way beyond your current capabilities, but don't let that put you off. Tuck it away in the back of your mind and know it's there when you're ready for it. This webinar will be going up on our Promethean ANZ YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch it as many times as you like. I would also encourage you to check out the Promethean UKI YouTube channel, as they have dozens and dozens of webinars like this one already up there, and they are really good. For this reason, I'm not going to be taking you through an in-depth navigation of the software, which you might ordinarily expect to see in an introduction type training session. That has already been covered in some of the UKI team's webinars. My aim today is to be more specific to our ANZ teachers and provide some basic advice and ideas to get teachers up and running with their teaching once their interactive whiteboard or interactive flat panel has been installed. Today we will look more in depth at how to start using your software to promote deeper thinking or collaboration in your lessons. And all of this in under an hour. So on that note, let's begin. I want to begin by taking just a couple of minutes to show you a few key places you can go to for help and assistance. This is important because I know a lot of teachers, and I was one of them, will simply steer away from using the technology if it isn't working properly. And so often there is just a teeny tiny easy step to fixing it if you know where to go. On screen now you should be seeing some phone numbers. These are the Promethean IT help phone numbers for Australia and New Zealand. Below these you will see a website. This is the Promethean Knowledge Base website. These are places you would go to get assistance with technical issues. For example, perhaps you're finding that you can't get the touch function or the pen to work properly on your interactive whiteboard or your interactive flat panel. You could visit the Promethean Knowledge Base website, and doing a quick search will bring up a number of articles that may help explain how to solve that issue. There's also a Contact Us button at the top of the screen if needed, so you have the option to submit a form to our technicians via the website, and they will then email or ring you back to assist you. If you can't find help this way, or perhaps you don't have internet access, then you can use the IT help phone numbers to give our technicians a call. Just a note, for the quickest service, it's advisable to have the Active Care number for your product handy when you call. This Active Care number would have been given to your school by the vendor you purchased from, probably at the time of purchase or installation. It's not the end of the world if you can't find this Active Care number. Schools often have filed it away somewhere with all of the paperwork. You can give your vendor a quick call and they'll be able to tell you the number. Okay, so that is where you can find technical support, but what about support with the really important stuff, teaching and learning? As I mentioned earlier, there are two YouTube channels you can visit to watch these training webinars, the Promethean UK and Ireland YouTube channel and our Promethean Australia and New Zealand YouTube channel, which should be up and running any day now. In a moment, I'm going to take you out to visit the Promethean Planet website. If you haven't already found this little gem, please make a note of the website address that you can see on screen now. As soon as this webinar is over, I would encourage you to sign up. It's free, and it's the place that millions of teachers around the world come to get assistance with professional learning about the ActivInspire software, as well as a place they can download literally thousands of free resources, as well as some top quality publisher created resources. Okay, here we are on the Promethean Planet website. I'm already signed in, but over here on the right-hand side of the screen, where you can see the world at the moment, is where you would normally see the option to register as a member. We could spend an entire webinar looking at Promethean Planet. It's so full of goodies and such a useful place. However, we've only got time for a whistle-stop tour today, so I'm going to show you what I think are the essentials. One thing to note, make sure you are logged in here under the International English or the UK English site. If you're logged in under the US English, you'll see different headings, and we don't want to see their headings. Okay. Firstly, let's look at the Professional Development tab. Now, under Videos, Manuals and More, we have some very important things. If you click on ActivInspire videos here, what you get is a series of short training videos taking you through how to use the tools or the basic tools of ActivInspire. For example, here's the pen tool, here's how you change the color or the thickness of the pen, and so on. These videos will just teach you about the tools. They will not really give you many pedagogical ideas or uses of the tools, but they serve the purpose they're intended for. Over to the right, as you can see here, you have downloadable copies of user manuals. I'm sure there's lots of you out there who still love something concrete. These download as PDFs, and you can print them off if you wish, but I'd advise you to think twice because they're pretty massive. To the left, over here we have the place where you would go to register for Promethean webinars. You might have already found this already. Both the UK and the Australia, New Zealand webinars will be advertised here. And on the far left, we've got a place where you can come if you're looking for face-to-face training for your school. You'll find a list of Promethean accredited trainers or training facilities across ANZ. Finally, I want to draw your attention up at the top here to this small icon that reads Active Tips. I think these are fantastic. These are, again, little training videos, but they go into more detail about more advanced tools or how you might use some of the functions of ActivInspire to create learning activities. There are a couple of hundred of these, so I advise using the search option when you pop in here. The only other place I'm going to show you on Promethean Planet today is the Professional Development tab. The Resources tab. This is where you could come to search through thousands of ready-made lessons or other resources. As you can see, you can search via various categories or age ranges or subject areas. Personally, when I come to do a search for resources on Promethean Planet, I find it much quicker and much easier to use this button over here on the right-hand side of the screen, the Advanced Search. I think this should have a neon blinking light. It's easily overlooked and yet it's so useful. So let's do a quick search for a lesson then, just to demonstrate how quickly you can have a resource to use. I'm going to search for a literacy lesson, so I'm going to tick here. I'll actually tick all of them. If I want, I can add a keyword, and I'm going to type sentences because I have in mind a reading group that really needs to do some work on that. Then I can click on these numbered bars and I can choose to narrow my search. I'm not going to narrow it by too many restrictions though, because otherwise I might end up with no results. Just want flip charts. Okay. Just be aware that the resources you are searching are resources that other teachers around the world have made and shared out of the goodness of their hearts. If you're searching for Peruvian underwater basket weavers and there are no results that pop up, well, that is because no other teacher has uploaded any resources on that topic. Okay, here we go. Just going to have a little look through here. As you can see, I have 348 different kinds of sentence lessons here. I might choose this one and we're just going to click download. I could have chosen to preview it if I wanted to. It will give me a little bit of extra information on the flip chart and the author of the person who published it. However, we're on a tight schedule today, so we're just downloading it. Now, sometimes you might have a box like this pop up on your computer, and it's going to ask you whether you want to open the file or save the file. It's very tempting to choose open, and what will happen is the flip chart will open in ActivInspire, and you'll have a look through and you'll think it's wonderful and you'll choose to save it from there. Don't do this. What happens when you choose open is it opens you like a read-only type file. So if there are any videos, sound files, actions, any extra little goodies that are supposed to come with that flip chart, what you'll find is they won't come. So you must save the file first and open it later. Okay. I'm just going to check that that's there. Normally it pops up. Okay, there it is in my downloads folder. So what I'm going to do is just double click on that and you'll see within a few seconds I was able to download a resource to use. Okay, that pretty much concludes our whistle-stop tour of Promethean Planet. I'm sure in another webinar at a later date I'll go into Promethean Planet in much more detail because it really is such a fantastic resource. Okay, we'll now take a look at the basics of what you should see when you open up your ActivInspire software. There are basically three things that should be on your page. You should have your toolbar, you should have a rubbish bin. This is where you drag items if you want to get rid of them. And you should have this browser window that rolls in and out from the side of your page. Now you will have noticed I just clicked on a little, the little safety pin, push pin at the top there, and it pinned out my browser. And it also shrank my page so I'm able to see all of it there. It's very tempting, especially if the browser's coming in and out and in and out, to choose that X to get rid of it. That has now made the browser disappear from my screen. It's also very easy and very tempting for students, I must say, to press that X on the rubbish bin, and again, it then disappears from my screen. Don't panic, it's very easy to get these things back. At the top of your screen, you should see some menu options, and they're the same menu options that I would get if I clicked on my main menu on my toolbar. So it doesn't matter if I use it up here or off my toolbar, I need to come to View, and there's my browser. You'll notice there's also a keyboard shortcut, Control B for Windows or Command B for Mac users, and the browser is back. And the same for my rubbish bin. Now, the rubbish bin is called the flip chart trash can. If you can't find it on the list, under R for rubbish bin. Okay, it's very easy to get them back. Now, the only other thing I'm going to show you about your software before we launch into things is that it can be customized. It can look however you would like it to look. Anywhere you see this little icon that I'm circling with my mouse at the top of my toolbar here, anywhere you see that icon in the software, click on it because it gives you different options. Okay, you'll see it's like a little menu icon. Now, if I click on it on my toolbar, what you'll notice is I've got lots of options for how I want my toolbar to look. I might choose to dock my tools at the top of the page. If you're a person who's used PowerPoint or other Microsoft Office Suite products, you might find that this is really useful for you. Personally, I've come up through 15 years of using the software where I had a floating toolbar and I get very lost, so I have to have floating. Also, if you've docked your tools at the top, it can be quite difficult if there are vertically challenged people in your room, like short children or short teaching staff, and you have a wall-mounted device, a wall-mounted board. If that's the case, you can dock them at the bottom so that you've got easy access. As I say, I'm going to choose mine to be floating. There we go, and I like it on this side. Just dragging it around in that blue part at the top. Now, here in Australia and in New Zealand too, we highly encourage the teachers to use the studio interface of the software rather than the primary interface. So the first time you would have opened your software, it asked you how you wanted it to look. Did you want it to look like studio? Did you want it to look like primary? You can see here I've got the nice grey toolbar, I've got the grey frames to my page, and my browser is grey. If I had chosen Active Primary, what I would have is a blue and yellow screen and blue and yellow theme, I guess you would call it. Now, it's entirely up to you what you would like to choose for the interface. I personally like to encourage the more grown-up look of Studio, and I find Studio has a few more benefits. That's my personal choice. If you have accidentally chosen Primary or vice versa have chosen Studio and you would prefer to use the other interface, you change it very easily in your dashboard. Now, the dashboard pops up when you first open the software, but if I've already closed that, I can bring it back under View, and I just go down to Dashboard. And on the left-hand side of my dashboard, I click Configure, and there's a very small tick box down here, and it reads Launch next time using the primary look and feel. If I ticked that box, and then I shut my software down and I reopen my software, it would open looking like this. Now, the main differences between the interfaces are basically the color and the layout. So on my Studio toolbar, all my pen options are here on the toolbar itself. I select the pen, I've got my sizes, and I have 100 different pen sizes here. Okay. Over here you can see on my little diagram, or my screenshot, if I chose pen in the Active Primary interface, Active Primary interface, the pens pop up in a tray down the bottom here. Okay, I have 6 sizes I can choose from. I have 3 highlighter pen sizes, and I have 3 erasers down here. I've still got color options. I still right-hand click to change those colors of those pens. It's just a different layout. I would also have less icons in my browser window in Active Primary. That is because the icons are on the toolbar instead, because they would pop up in a tray down the bottom. So for instance, later when we go into the resource browser, instead of seeing the window pane here, my resources would pop up down the bottom. Okay. As I said, it's your choice. Choose whichever interface appeals to you and your students. However, just be aware that most of these training videos and webinars will be done in Active Studio. Now, I'm making the assumption that if you're watching this webinar today, it is because you've purchased a Promethean board of some kind, or you have purchased a license to use the software on another type of front of room board type device. So my challenge for you all today is to extend your thinking. Don't view your interactive whiteboard or your interactive flat screen panel or your interactive projector as just a board at the front of the class where you'll do whole class teaching. Of course, it's an excellent space to do exactly that whole class modelling or the regroup or to capture that teachable moment, but also try to think about ways you can have students using the board. It might be guided group activities with you, or it might be small group activities independent of you. I'm going to try and show you a range of ideas and examples today, and even if they're not the right year level or subject area for you at the moment, hopefully they'll give you ideas and inspire you to have a go at something new. So let's get started. We're on a bit of a tight schedule today. There's lots to get done and little time to do it in. This should be a familiar scenario for all of you teachers out there, and this is why I'm starting our session today with some huge time-saving tips. As I mentioned earlier, we may have teachers watching today who have used other brands of software. If you are a Smartboard user and you've now come across to the light, then the good news is that you can bring all of your old Smart Notebook resources with you. Over here on my toolbar, I'm going to my main menu button, I'm selecting File, and then I'm going down to the Import option. As you can see, I have lots of different options for importing different kinds of files. Now, if I were running a Windows computer today, then I would also see the option to import a PowerPoint. I'm afraid, fellow Mac users, this is one time when Windows are one up on us. They would also have two extra options here, import PowerPoint as images or import PowerPoint as objects. I'm going to show you how easy it is to import a file. I can't show you a PowerPoint today, obviously, but it's exactly the same process and it's just as quick. So I want to import a Smart Notebook file. I click on that and then I locate it on my desktop. There it is there. And I click Open. And it's as easy as that. I now have got, if I pop across here into my browser window, I've now got all of these pages that I previously had created in Smart Notebook now available to me in ActivInspire. And let's not forget, we're also able to download flip charts from Promethean Planet, where other teachers have shared their creations with us, and we have our sentences one right here. So potentially we have hundreds of resources all ready at our fingertips. The only problem with having all of these ready-made at your fingertips resources is that it's a bit like having all of those textbooks and resource books in your teacher library. You wouldn't necessarily use every activity in every book for every student, would you? So let me show you how you can very quickly and easily personalize these for your own class. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my main menu and I'm going to say File and New Flip Chart because I want to create a new flip chart for my students to use. I'm then going to go across to my flip chart that I would like to borrow the pages from. So here's the one we downloaded from Promethean Planet. And I think I would like to take this first page here. All I need to do is come into my page browser. The page browser is the first icon on the left of your browser. And I'm going to click on that page and I'm going to drag it up to where you see the untitled flip chart that I just opened. You can see it's carried it with it there, the little thumbnail. And I just click on that and there you have it. It's copied across the page for me. So let's then come into our junior literacy example. Now, if you're like me and you don't like scrolling through all of the pages, slightly down towards the bottom, you can see another slidey scale that lets you shrink those pages. So let's say I would like multiple pages from this flip chart, what I'm going to do is use my Command button because I'm on Mac. If I was on Windows, I would use Control. And I hold it down and I just select those pages that I would like. And you can see there on my page they're highlighted blue. I'm then going to click on them and I'm going to drag them up and click on Untitled. And you can see there, very quickly and easily, I have put together some pages that I would like for a particular group in my class. Okay. I would then save this flip chart. I'll just delete that page. I don't need that one. I would then save this flip chart. And saving a flip chart is like saving a file anywhere. Again, I can use these tabs across the top here. My personal habit is to always come to my main menu. So I'm coming main menu, file, and save as. And I can choose where I would like to save that. So group 1 work. I'll just save it to my desktop for now. There you go. Nice and easy. Now, just so that you know, if I had wanted to, I could have used my keyboard shortcuts of Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V as well. They work just as well. Okay. The next time-saving tip I have for you is to have a look in the resource browser and see what is already in there pre-made for you. So the resource browser is the second icon along from the left in your browser window. What you should see when you open this is a resource tree or a library tree with all of the folders of resources there. And then you also have the area of viewing pane where you will see the resources. Now my resources are very small. This is because I've used this menu button here. I've come to view these as a grid and I've changed my thumbnail size to small. As I mentioned before, I hate scrolling, and if I hover over the resource, it tells me the name of it. I just find it easier. This is how I set up my library. So in your library, you have already got a large amount of pre-made activities for you. Okay, there are dozens of them in here in the folder called Activities. And if I'm going to come down here to this one and show you this, okay, anything you want from your browser, you click on it and you drag it out onto your page. Now, because this is a page, it's inserted itself straight into my flip chart as a page. And it's interactive. If I hover over any of the elements here, you can see that I have some information popping up in the screen there. And depending on the tab that I have selected at the bottom of the screen is what information I get to see. Okay. I've also got the option to click on, let's go to one that I love, click on that and it pops up an information box. Now, for all of you teachers who are looking for hundreds charts, come and look here first. You've got 3 really fantastic ones here. I've already pulled one out, I believe. There we go. This is my favorite one. Not only do I have the semi-translucent coloured squares that will pop onto the page, which are great for marking out numbers or skip counting, but I've also got these squares. These are kind of magic squares. And if I use them to pop them over a number, I can then come down to this black square and I can black out the hundreds chart, yet I can still see through that magic square there. And this is great for those counting on or counting back skills. So I can plonk the number on, what's 1 more, what's 1 less, what's 10 more, what's 10 less, and so on. Okay, so I highly recommend you popping in and checking out those pre-made activity pages. Also, if you see a yellow post-it note at the top of your screen like this, it means that there are page notes attached to that that tell you how to use the activity. Not all of the activities have them, but a lot of them do. Now, there's so much to show you and tell you about in the resource browser here that I'm actually going to do a separate webinar on that. But I would encourage you to come and have a little look through yourself. You'll be surprised at what you'll find in there. You've got a search function up here. Okay, if you prefer to use the search function, then you push the go arrow. One thing I will draw your attention to, however, is the subjects folder. You can see at the bottom of my my library tree here. Often this is missing from people's libraries. They didn't realize it was a separate download when you were also downloading ActivInspire of Promethean Planet. The good news is that it's really easy to download off Promethean Planet, and once you have done that, all you need to do is double-click on it, double-click on the icon, choose the Shared Resources option when that prompt comes up, and then you'll see it here in your library. And it is absolutely full of some of the best bits, some of the best goodies. So if you're missing that, jump on Promethean Planet and download it. If you go to the Download Inspire page, you will see the option for downloading that resource pack. Okay. Let's crack on then and get to know a few of our really useful tools in ActivInspire. There are a couple of tools in particular that I want to showcase today because they're tools that I use every single day in my own classroom. They open up such a range of possibilities and they're so simple to use. Please bear in mind I'm only showing a smidgen of their capacity here today because we have such a tight time frame, but you're really only limited by your imagination with how you use these tools. And the first tool I want to point out is the camera tool. As we can see here, we have a beautiful photo of my esteemed colleague, Laurie, and I can use the camera tool in a number of ways. I have it available to me inside the software, and I can find that in my tools. Now, remember, in ActivInspire, there's always several ways to do or to find the same thing. I like to use this tool icon here on my toolbar when I'm looking for tools, but I could have come to my top menu buttons here and gone to tools, or I could have gone to my main menu and chosen tools, and you'll see the list is exactly the same. As I say, my habit is to use the tool icon there. And you'll notice that I have a camera tool, and when I hover over it, I have a selection of several different types of camera tool to use. I could use the area snapshot tool, and inside my software, it's really a great way to crop images. So if I just wanted Laurie's face instead of the head and shoulders shot, I would just simply click and drag around the area I want selected. I could drag out these white boxes. I can move that around by clicking inside it. It's a very simple tool to use, and I'm just going to pop that on the current page so you can see a nice crop there. There's also a really useful tool, the point-to-point snapshot, and I might use this to trim accurately around Laurie's face, or perhaps he's my star of the week in my class, and so I'm going to use the point-to-point to cut him out in an interesting way, like so. Okay, so you can see there the camera tool in use inside ActivInspire. Now, that's great, and we will use this camera tool again later, but it's not the best thing about the camera tool. The best thing is that I also have access to it when I'm outside of my software. and it allows me to bring in an image of absolutely anything that's relevant to my class and my lesson in just a few seconds. It's how I was able to put the picture of Laurie onto this page in the first place. And it's also how you'll be able to make really, really quick and meaningful learning activities for your students. So, how do I access the camera tool outside of my software then? I use this tool at the top of my toolbar called Desktop Tools. You'll notice it's a picture of a blue desktop, and it's got that same little toolbar icon but over top of the desktop. When I click on it, it appears that my flip chart has completely disappeared. What's actually happened is I now have a very special round toolbar that's popped up in the middle of my screen. You'll always find it floating in the middle of your screen if you can't immediately see it, if it gets lost on your desktop. It's your desktop toolbar, desktop tools toolbar. I like to call it the UFO because when you hover over it, it's ready for takeoff with all of those icons. Now, I get back into my flip chart by clicking on the icon that looks like a flip chart, which makes sense. Okay. When I was teaching, I used this book. I'll just make it a little bit larger to reference it. I used this book a lot for teaching reading strategies, and I'm going to use a PDF out of that today. It has lots of blackline masters within the book itself, which I could potentially scan and email to myself if I was in school. But it also came with some digital content on a CD-ROM, and that's what I've got loaded on my computer. So that's what I'm going to use now. I'm going to go out to my desktop with my desktop tools. I'll just get rid of our internet. And here's my folder of resources here. And we'll do a summarizing activity. What's the big idea? Here we go. Okay, so you can see here I have got a digital copy of a particular page. Now I don't want the whole page. I just want this top part of the activity. Okay, so I'm going to come to my desktop tools. I'm going to come out to my square camera, which is called Area Snapshot. And I'll just move this out of the way. You can see it's come on my page in the last size and location that I used my camera tool. I just move that around and I drag it like so. Okay. And on this little pop-up window, on the left-hand side, it shows the options for where I can send it. Now, I just want to send it to my current page. And then I'm going to go back into my flip chart, and you can see that instantly I have got the PDF inside my flip chart. Okay, now because I'm going to be writing on this, I don't want it to move around my page, so I'm going to click on it, and you'll see there's another menu option at the top here. In here you'll see the third icon along from the left. That's another menu. Looks like the main menu on your toolbar. It's your Object Edit menu. And when I click on that, I have an option to lock things on my page. Now, I often refer to this in my training sessions as Cheat's right-hand click. That's because if I was to right-hand click over top of my object, you'll notice that these are exactly the same menu options as I had in that little menu there. So I'm going to lock that down, and now it doesn't move around the page. And now we can select the pen tool, and we could be writing on our PDF. Now, if I wanted to use the PDF here, whole class, as a modelling exercise, I absolutely could. But thinking a bit deeper, what I would rather do is have a small group of children working at the board on this activity. So they're there discussing the plot or the main ideas of the story and coming to a consensus about what's going to be included on this graphic organizer here. So by swapping and allowing the students to access the board and work together at the board, it allows an opportunity for deeper discussions and debates along with a lot of negotiation. And with the multi-touch active panels or active board touch, you could even, the kids could even be all writing on it at the same time. Now, you may be wondering why I didn't just use my import PDF option. Okay, remember when we looked at how we could import Smart Notebook files before, I also had the option to import as a PDF. I chose not to do this in this instance because this particular PDF was portrait oriented. If it had been landscape oriented, I would have used this option, but this is what happens if you import, let me just find it again, a PDF that is portrait size. Okay, import. So you can see there, I do have the whole PDF instantly at the tips of my fingers, but it's very small. And I don't like how squished up, and suddenly it becomes a big deal for me to try and make that bigger. So instead of that, I chose to use my desktop camera tool and take a photo of that PDF. Let's go through now and have a look at ways that we can make a few activities using our desktop camera tool, and then we'll have a look at other ways that teachers have used their desktop camera tool. Okay, here we have the cover of a junior school reader. It's level 4, so fairly emergent. Now, in my classroom, I might do 2 parts for an activity around this book. I might start off a guided reading group session with a little prediction activities. The students would all have a copy of the book, so the image here on screen is only for our viewing benefit today. As typical, we would look at the cover and we would talk about what we see, generating some ideas and some language around the cover. Then I'd ask them what words they might expect to see inside the book. I would make a note of these words on the board, voila, so that when I leave them to do the post-reading activity on the next page, they have a nice scaffold. I've popped this image of Bloom's taxonomy on this page just as a bit of a reference, because what I'm hoping to encourage you to do is think a step further when you're creating activities. How can we get this higher-end, deeper thinking happening? Now, you may have other models that you use in your school, like SAMR or Learning Keys or Thinking Hats. Whatever you use, it doesn't matter. The idea of encouraging deeper thinking is the heart of the matter here. So to go on to step 2 of this group's task, a post-reading activity, and we're going to make that right now. Obviously, I would have pre-made this before giving it to them. So I'm going to pop out with my desktop tools icon to my desktop, and as you can see, I did a quick scan of the book. It's not even a very straight scan. I apologise for that. Now, most photocopiers in schools allow you to scan and email the scan to yourself. So if I was at school, that's what I would have done. Opened the book, scanned it, emailed it. And I'm going to use my area snapshot again to take a photo of the picture here on this page and the picture here on this page. Just move that out of the way. I'm putting them just on the current page. Now I'm going to take a snapshot of the text on this page and the text on this page. And you can see I'm just dragging that across there because I'm being completely lazy. I don't want to have to do more work than I need to. Okay, using that Return to Flipcharts icon on my desktop toolbar, I'm popping back in. And you can see everything's just stacked up here in the middle of the page. So I'll just pull the text off for a minute. I'm going to select, by just using my mouse cursor, I'm going to select both of those images, and I'm just going to use the bubble here with the line in the corner because that keeps everything in proportion as I drag it. It doesn't stretch, as you can see that one would do. There's a bit of pen on the page from where I was having a play earlier. Okay, might make them even a little bit smaller. Okay, so over here, I'm just popping the pictures. Now, Greedy Cat likes string, make that a tiny bit smaller to fit under the picture, and Greedy Cat likes paper. Okay. Now, because it's a junior school text, it's lovely and repetitive, and I want to provide the children with a little opportunity here to do some decoding practice and to review the book, but we're also then going to do an extension to that activity. Just making that a bit smaller. Just realised I didn't leave myself much room at the bottom of the page there. Okay, now I'm going to use my camera tool inside the software now, and I'm only going to use this once, and then I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut because it's much quicker for me while I'm creating this. And you'll notice that it's Shift-Command-K for me on Mac, and it's Shift-Control-K on Windows. Okay, and I'm going to cut out the word paper and put it onto this current page. Then I'm Command-Shift-K. I'm going to cut out the word string, current page, and I'm also going to cut out a few of the other words just so that we've got a bit of decoding practice going on there. Cat and likes. Okay, and I'm just going to pop those words onto the page over here. Okay. Now, what I want to do is create a little close activity. So I'm going to take my pen. I'm just going to choose white, although perhaps grey might be slightly better for this page here. And I'm going to cover over those words. Okay, so the idea is that the students are going to have to identify the words here and they're going to pull them down to finish the sentence. Now, the problem at the moment is that the software works in layers. So if I just pop into my third icon along in my browser, this is the object browser, you'll see that I've got pen sitting here on the top layer, and it's going to be over top of all of my words. So when the kids drag the words, it's going to hide underneath the pen. So what I want to do is take those first four, 1, 2, 3, 4, those first four of the middle layer objects there, and I actually want to move them on top of the pen. And I can do that by just dragging them up the list there. And now those will sit over top of my pen. Okay. Once again, remember I said at the beginning, if this is over your head, don't panic. At least you know the sorts of things that you can do in the software once you're ready for it. Now, because we're going to be dragging things around, once more I want to lock these down onto the surface so that they don't move around. However, what I'd like to do first is to tidy them up with a little box. So I'm coming into my shape tool. I'm selecting it on the side here, rectangle, and The outline of the shape is dictated here in my colour palette and fatness of pen, and the inside colour of my shape is dictated here by this toolbar. I don't want a solid shape, I want a hollow shape, so I'm choosing the box with the X in it up there. And I'm just going to, drag a box like that, one like that, just to make it look a little bit pretty, one like that, and one like that. And then this is not my whole activity. Remember, we're trying to think a little bit deeper with what we're getting the students to do. The idea is that this group of students would be up here working together. Now, so far, they have a little opportunity to be discussing and peer teaching and what have you, but it's not really requiring a great deal of deep thinking or communication from them. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to draw some blank picture boxes and some blank text boxes underneath those. Now, I'm sorry, this is all a little bit crooked. I'd be doing it much neater if I wasn't in such a hurry. And with my mouse cursor turned back on, I'm selecting all of these items and I'm going to lock them down so that they don't move. So there's my activity set up. The first part of the activity is that the students are going to be pulling across the right word. But the second part of the activity is that they're going to be drawing in here pictures of something else that Greedy Cat likes. Now, it could be that they think of something completely new, but it might be that they need to go back to this page where we brainstormed our predictions about the text, and they might use one of these ideas here if they need that as a scaffold. But the idea is that they're then using their prior knowledge and the knowledge that they gained from reading the book to then work together to come to a consensus about what will be drawn and what will be written. So just by adding these empty boxes, you've taken that activity up a lovely step. Okay, moving quickly on. Here we have another post-reading activity for a junior reader. Now, in the back cover of this Bumblebee book was a labelled diagram of a bumblebee. So I scanned that and I used my desktop camera tool to get the image onto my flip chart page. You can see over here that I used my camera tool to take photos of the text. And if I just unlock the page, so I'm using that red button at the top, it's normally blue. This is your design mode and your presentation mode toggle. And I could just take away the line of pen that I popped on there. And you can see all I've done is I've covered up the words that were already in the picture themselves. Okay. Now, this in itself might be a challenging enough activity for some of your students, but it's not really going to be an activity that challenges deeper thinking or allows for great discussion. So, let's take the same scanned image and just alter the activity a little bit. In fact, it's even easier to set up than the other one. Okay, let's make it a much more ambiguous task and therefore open up more of a chance for discussion and negotiation between the students. Let's ask them to rank the bumblebee's body parts from most to least important. All I needed to do to create this activity was to grab my scanned image and pop it into my flip chart using my desktop camera tool. Then I added text to the page to get these numbers. So I clicked on my T for text and I typed. Now, note that I typed the numbers in individual text boxes so that they will move independently, and I also chose to use a background colour in the text box. You can do this up here. So when I have T selected on my toolbar, I get my word processing toolbar across the top here. At the moment, the colour of my font will be red, and if I click in the box next to it, it then pops up options for background colours. So let's choose grey. There you go. As you can see, it's now got a background in behind the text. Just drag that to the bin, get rid of it. Now this is much more thought-provoking activity, but it also requires a fairly decent question or set of instructions for the student. As you can see, there's a chunk of text at the top of the page explaining that. And these kids are perhaps not going to be able to actually read this for themselves because, again, this is just a level 4, a fairly emergent text. I want to be independent of this activity. I want the kids to be using this at the board without me. I'm busy with another group and I want to give that group my undivided attention. So this is where my second favourite tool, the sound recorder, comes into play. Okay, the sound recorder can be found in Tools, under More Tools, and you will need either an inbuilt microphone or you'll need to plug in a microphone to get this function to work. But it's very simple. The red button is going to start it, and the square button, grey button there, stops it. So I'll just demonstrate what happens. Decide as a group which body parts are the most important for the bumblebee. Drag the numbers across to rank the body parts when you have decided. Now, as soon as I've pushed stop, what's happened is my sound bite has been popped straight onto the page. So what I can do is I can just drag that somewhere that is easy for the children to reach, and they're going to be able to click on that, and so on. They can click on that and hear my instructions. Okay. Now, as we go further up the school, we find that the texts get longer, and there might also be more information that we need to have on the page for the students. This is a reading comprehension activity that I want to set up for a group of Year 9 students to do collaboratively at the board. This is actually a NAPLAN style reading test and set of answers out of a NAPLAN practice book that I have, which I scanned and popped into my flip chart using my desktop camera tool. This is all of the info that I think my reading group will need to do this activity. There's the text up here, okay. There's the questions and an answer space here, and over here there's the answers, which happen to be split across 2 pages of the book. Now, I don't want to shrink any of it down because then the text will become too small and everything becomes just too fiddly. All I really need to do is spread the stuff out and create something like this. As you can see, here's my text that's locked down. It's still big enough to comfortably read. If I pull this red arrow here at the bottom of the page, here are the question and answer spaces. Now, because I want them to be a reasonable size so the kids can still read them and write answers at a reasonable size as well, I've left that box at quite a large size, and it can be pulled up and down and all around the page out of the way as they need it. I've also done a cunning and very easy trick so that the kids can actually write their answers into the box, and those answers will move around with the box. Let me just get a reasonable size pen. Okay, there we go. So anywhere they move, that box, the answers are going to go with it. Okay, I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Down here, neatly tucked away, are the answers. Okay. If they need to self-check or self-mark. Okay. And you can see here, I've put my instructions on the board with the sound recorder again, because I needed to give them fairly comprehensive instructions, not only about how to pull the box up and keep their writing inside the parameters of that box for it to move around, but also the actual activity itself. Now, because this is a reading comprehension activity, and I want them to really show they comprehend, I have asked the students to not only answer the questions, but to also use the highlighter tool to highlight in the text the evidence for their answers. Okay, so they can just use that highlighter, over top of the text. Now, whether they literally found the answer in the text or whether it was words that inferred an answer, they needed to highlight it. In this particular example, and it's the reason I chose it for a collaborative group task, there are a lot of inferred answers. And so there is a lot of room for discussion and debate around these. So being very particular about the task that you choose to set for an activity is important. You know, if you're trying to get maximum collaboration, discussion, consensus, opportunities for negotiation, debate, whatever, be selective about the texts that you use, I guess is my point there. Now, I'll flick back to this page and really quickly show you what I did. Okay, I locked that text down, so I right-clicked on it and pushed locked. I then put these answers together here, and I selected both of them at once, and then in that menu that pops up, and it's popped up at the bottom this time, there are two green squares. If I hover over that icon, it's saying grouped. If I click on that icon, it turns yellow, and I know that those objects are now grouped. Now, I used an eye information sign there as well. I actually stole that off Google Images, so instead of doing that, I'll just do an eye with text, like so, and I'll group those now. Okay, and they'll all move together, and I'll just push that down off the side of the page there. Now, this one, I'm going to put a lovely border around. I've still got my rectangle on red set, which is great. I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to use just a red triangle this time. So I'm choosing red and, undo that. Choosing red to be inside as well. Here we go. And I'm just going to group all of those together. Now, I don't have to drag my box to select them around all of them. I just need to get a little piece of each of those together, and then I can use those two green squares and group them. Okay, now the cunning trick is to set this up as a container that can contain anything, and I do that in my browser with the fifth icon along from the left. It's my property browser, and I'll just roll some of these up to get them out of the way. Here's my container options. I can ignore everything in here except that first line, can contain nothing. I'm going to say can contain anything. Okay, and they can literally put absolutely anything in there. And as long as their writing stays inside the frame of the box, I've done a line outside here so you can see what happens, it gets left behind. Yeah, so as long as it's inside the box or dragged inside the box, it will then move around with it. Now, finally, I put my instructions on the page at the top there, and I think I also put just a background. Let's quickly jump to the resource browser here. We'll go to backgrounds, we'll go to texture, and we'll just pull on a lovely background there to brighten it up. And there's your activity set up nice and quickly. Now, I've explained about the sound recorder being used to leave instructions on the page for the students. Flip that on its head, your students are also able to use the sound recorder to leave you comments. And it might be something that they got stuck on. It might be instead of writing their answers, they decided to do the answer verbally because they wanted to justify why they ended up choosing that answer. Maybe they couldn't come to a consensus, so they've chosen A and C, for example, here in this question, and they've left a verbal note to you about why they couldn't decide between those two answers. So the sound recorder is not just something you can use as a teacher tool, it's also a really powerful feedback tool that you can get your students using. Okay, so we've had a look at making a few activities and we've learnt how to do a few tricks. So let's finish off with taking a quick look at different ways we can apply that same knowledge. Let's look at some other simple but effective uses of your camera tool. A shape hunt around the school. When you do a geography unit, perhaps you take your class on a walk through the corridors or the playground to find different shapes in the environment. If you take a digital camera with you and take a few photos as you go around, you can then use your desktop tools to pop that photo in there. Now, I've often had the question that why wouldn't I just drag in the image straight into my page? Simply that the file is then way too big. Using my desktop camera tool is when it allows me to make a much smaller file. Okay, now the kids can use the pen tool over top of the image, and they can be finding those shapes in the environment like so. If you're fussy about straight lines, you can come up once pen or highlighter is selected. You have the option to use pen modifiers here, and you can draw your own rectangles, okay, nice and straight, or squares and so on. Now, if colour printing is not an option for you at your school, is not a problem for you at your school rather, then these make a great wall display. They say a picture paints 1,000 words, and if you're clever in your choice of image, you can really draw those words out of your students in a class discussion. Images are a great way to introduce a new topic or a current event, or to address stereotypes or other social issues. In this example, I've chosen to cover up parts of the picture because I want to have the most impact out of the image by revealing a bit at a time. I used rectangles drawn with the shape tool here to cover it up. At the start of the discussion, I'll be asking my students to take a look at the boy, and from what they can see so far, make suggestions about the boy, how old he is, where he might live, what sorts of things he might enjoy doing. I'd then reveal a part of the picture here. Has that changed anything or reinforced what we were thinking earlier? Basically, I'm wanting them to suggest what life might be like for these boys from what they can see. They look like pretty normal kids, a couple of cheeky chappies hanging out together. And I then reveal the rest of the image. And as you can see, these normal kids happen to live in a war-torn country where there are armed soldiers on the streets where the kids are playing. I chose to use shapes to cover up this image because I wanted to reveal it in parts, but I could also have chosen to reveal it in a couple of other ways. In my toolbox, I have a revealer tool. It blacks out my screen and it allows me to reveal part of that screen at once. Okay, so I could have started like this and then revealed the rest of the picture there. To turn off the reveal tool, I can go back into my tools and click on it again, or using that note icon at the top right, I just click close. Now, for this particular image, because I wanted to start with one of the boys, I might have chosen instead to use the spotlight tool instead of the revealer. And I'm going to choose square spotlight. And I move it around by grabbing it anywhere in the black and hovering over that coloured border, I can stretch it out. Okay, so I could have had it sitting there like that and then revealed like that, and of course then just turned it off to reveal the rest of the picture. Okay. This is one of my favourite examples to show when I'm talking about the camera tools. It's courtesy of a fantastic science teacher from Invercargill in New Zealand named Robin Garden. Thank you for sharing your idea with me years ago, Robin. As you can see, I'm still sharing it with other teachers after all this time because I think it's such a good one. It's simple but powerful. Students can often find the electrical circuit drawings confusing. I know I did back in my own schooling. I used to muddle up the equipment and get confused with wires and trying to draw the diagrams. It was horrible. So to help students make those connections, you can take photos of the actual equipment that they're going to be using in the classroom and pop the pictures onto your flip chart page like this. You can then use your pen tool, and you can be drawing over top of these with the symbols that you want to use. There we go. Oops. It's a bit hard using my pen tool on the mouse thing here. Okay. And then, of course, you can draw in your wires and show that, oops, if I pull these away, you're left with your electrical circuit drawing. And of course you can see here, wires are never square and straight like they are here. They're all wobbly like I've so beautifully demonstrated. But as you can see, you suddenly have gone from something very concrete to something very abstract in a few easy steps. Okay. Analysis of work. Obviously, one of the most obvious uses of the camera tool would be to put students' work up on the board. It could be any work in any subject area. It could be maths problems, artworks, handwriting, anything. In this instance, it's a writing example, a personal recount. One thing I will say is just be careful the first few times you do this while the class is getting used to analysing work if they haven't done it before. Make sure you choose the work of a student who is robust enough to handle their work being discussed and pulled to pieces, as this can be quite a personal thing. We want to make sure we create the right kind of ethos for this sort of thing so that the students understand the learning behind it. For instance, in order to know what we have to do to improve our work, we need to first see where we're up to. So in this example, with this piece of writing, I'm not interested in correcting spelling and punctuation necessarily, unless that's a where to next, but I've got a rubric here, and I've of course set my little sneaky trick of contain anything container, and we can go through together and highlight where the student has shown evidence of this on the rubric and of course on their work. So we can clearly visually see, well, we're here, we need to move to here, so this is what we need to do. Okay, and our final example is courtesy of another fantastic New Zealand teacher named Kristen Sanderson from my hometown of Whangarei. Thanks for sharing, Kristen. As you can see, I still share this idea too, as I love it, and I've used it with my own classes over the years. For those of you who don't know David Hockney's work, he's an artist who's quite famous for painting swimming pools, but he's also famous for his photographic collages. And you can see here, I've just popped out to his website, and this is a classic example where he has composed a scene out of individual photos of the different elements. So the ground is made up of lots of different photos of the ground, the river's made up of lots of different photos of the river, the mountains of the mountain, and so on, all just layered upon each other. So here you can see some examples of kids' work where they have taken photos of different guitars and layered them up. Here's perhaps a better example. I can pull things off here. So you can see lots of little individual photos of leaves, probably just off Google Images. I would assume, and they've actually put it on a leaf background itself. So they've used the camera tool to snapshot in a leaf, and that's quite a nice scaffold, especially with younger children, to get that the outer shape, if you will. And of course, not only does this style of David Hockney's lend itself so well to us using our snapshot camera tool to create these artworks, but it's also something that can be done collaboratively. So you end up with some amazing artworks when you let the kids go for it. And that actually concludes our webinar today. So hopefully there was something here that was useful to each of you, and hopefully you'll join us again for future webinars. The next one is called What's So Great About the Resource Browser, and we'll cover not only how to find and use resources you already have in there, but how to download other essential resource packs from Promethean Planet, like Australian and New Zealand money. It will be a much shorter webinar. Today's was a bit longer because it was our first one and there was just a lot to show you. But thanks for joining us, and we hope you found it useful.